We have all heard stories about haunted houses, perhaps a home within which tragedy has befallen the residents, leaving their souls trapped inside forever. But what about hauntings in other buildings? Sometimes heartbreaking events happen during what should be the most pleasant of escapes. From vacations to business trips and out-of-town weddings, we have been trained to view stays in hotels as safe and comforting. This, however, is not always the case. Sometimes, a darkness can loom over a hotel that's as ominous and powerful as any haunted mansion, cabin, or castle. People live and die at hotels at a much more frequent rate than houses. When we stop to think about hauntings and the paranormal, it's only natural that we would find some sinister true stories lurking behind numbered doors. Join us today as we count down the top 10 most haunted hotels in America. We start our countdown with a very peculiar story and perhaps one of the most infamous hotels on this list. The Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, California has undergone various rebrands since it opened in 1924. The hotel was a lavish Hollywood hotspot in the 1940s before descending into a halfway house for criminals, addicts, and the impoverished. Now, the hotel has become one of the most sought-out haunted attractions in America. The tragic story of Eliza Lamb made global news in 2013, bringing the Cecil to the forefront of public consciousness. The tale centers around an infamous video that shows Lamb behaving erratically in an elevator, gesticulating to an unseen figure shortly before she was reported missing. Some believe that Lamb was battling with a dark entity, while others put it down to her struggle with bipolar disorder. In an unbelievable twist, Lamb's body was found in the water tank on the roof weeks after her vanishing. However, Lamb was not the first to pass on the hotel grounds. In a Netflix documentary on Lamb's disappearance, former general manager Amy Price said deaths were commonplace at the Cecil. In fact, during her 10-year stint, she dealt with over 80 fatalities. While the case of Eliza Lamb was haunting in itself, the Cecil has more to tell. Aspiring actress Elizabeth Short, famously referred to as the Black Dahlia, was rumored to have had her final drink in the bar of the Cecil Hotel in 1947. The Black Dahlia murder became one of the most historic cases associated with the dark side of vintage Hollywood. Infamous serial killer Richard Ramirez also stayed at the hotel. However, it is the story of Lamb that became a sensation amongst supernatural explorers. The Moana Surfrider in Hawaii is thought to be home to the ghost of Jane Stanford, the co-founder of Stanford University. However, she was at the center of a controversial conspiracy plot. Stanford was the victim of strychnine poisoning in what became one of the most enthralling murder mysteries in the history of the country. The news was dominated by the report of her death and the subsequent trial. Rumors of an attempt to poison Stanford predated her trip to Hawaii, supposedly occurring at her home in California as well. Stanford's body was found in her room at the Moana Surfrider in 1905, and residents have since stated that they have seen her spirit visiting the hotel to experience the peaceful Hawaiian views. Others claim to have seen Stanford wandering the hotel lost and looking for directions to her room in the middle of the night. Is this the mark of an unsettling spirit struggling for direction after running to escape her fate? Or simply Stanford's spirit enjoying its final resting place? The Red Lion Inn in Massachusetts is one of the oldest hotels on this list, having stood for almost 250 years. As such, the Red Lion Inn has seen a variety of rumored stories and supernatural sightings. The stories include that of a ghostly young girl holding flowers and the infamous man in room 301. Online reviews from guests at the Red Lion have reported a man in a top hat waking guests and even tickling them. The 1886 Crescent Hotel and Spa in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, has an intriguing history of hauntings. The owners have even tried to contact the spirits within the building. One of the most famous tourist attractions amongst American supernatural hunters is the ghost tour of the 1886 Crescent Hotel. This allows visitors the opportunity to engage with a variety of spirits that have been seen on the grounds of the Crescent Hotel over the years. The famed spirits thought to haunt the Crescent Hotel in the Ozark Mountains include a Victorian-era lady in a nightgown, a 1930s hospital patient, and Michael, an Irish stonemason who helped construct the hotel. This begs the question, how many different spirits are really there, roaming through the hallowed halls? Next, we get into a very specific legend that led to the haunting of the Seelbach Hilton in Louisville, Kentucky. The story centers around a spirit believed to roam these halls. It is believed that a young couple were set to be married in the hotel, but the groom died en route. The bride was at the Seelbach Hilton already awaiting him. When the news was broken to her, she was devastated and threw herself down an elevator shaft. The fall was 10 stories. In 1987, the chef at the Seelbach Hilton was preparing breakfast when he approached the elevator shaft and saw a figure that matched the description of the young bride. This backed up a story reported by another worker, a housekeeper on a different floor, who saw the spirit in the hall. Upon reporting this, it was discovered that the elevator was never opened at any location, thus leaving the mystery unsolved. Some guests have also reported that there are eerie hidden passageways throughout the building, including in this room where Al Capone reportedly played poker. The Fonda Hotel in Santa Fe, New Mexico, is the setting for many incredible tales. The first of these stories dates back to 1867, when Chief Justice of the Territorial Supreme Court John P. Slow was shot in the hotel lobby. Slow's signature apparel was said to be a long black coat. Interestingly, residents of the La Fonda acknowledged seeing Slow's disembodied coat floating through the halls and stairways. The hotel stands on a plaza that was the location for numerous Wild West gunfights and public hangings. The cast of characters associated with this time in history has given rise to some unsettling supernatural experiences at the La Fonda. Another recurring sight at the hotel is of the ghost of a young man emerging from the hotel well. This is believed to be the spirit of a man who jumped into the well in despair after losing a hand of cards during the wild days of outlaw gambling. The Roosevelt has been home to some of the most famous names in the entertainment industry, from Ernest Hemingway to Marilyn Monroe and Brad Pitt. It has been seen in the background of many films and has even been used as a location for several major productions. It may come as a shock to learn that many famous faces have been seen haunting the hallways. Amongst them, regular guest Monroe has been seen in mirrors in the Roosevelt, while Montgomery Clift has also been spotted in room 928, as well as the figure of a small, unknown girl. It is not surprising that the Roosevelt has become a major attraction for this reason. If you are ever staying at the Roosevelt, then maybe you will spy one of Hollywood's long-lost legends. We now turn our attention to a different time in American history, and likely the oldest hotel on this list, the Hawthorne. We travel to 17th century Salem, Massachusetts, home of the infamous witch trials. The horror experienced during the witch trials may very well be the breeding ground for ghosts and spiritual activity. If reports are to be believed, nowhere may be a greater hotspot than the Hawthorne Hotel. The haunting of the Hawthorne is a story of the lost sailors who would take up port in this part of the world. However, what lands at a spot on this list is the eerie consistency of the reports. 2 rooms are often cited as the location for supernatural activity: rooms 621 and 325. The activity often cited relates to flickering lights and appliances operating independently. The Hawthorne has also been the site of several unexplained fires. Sam Boltrasis, author of The Ghosts of Salem, states, "It's possible that the psychic imprint from the cursed land's past may have caused what parapsychologists call an aura of disaster, fertile ground for the birthing of ghosts." Reports have also extended to a young woman walking the halls, so witches may still be around in Salem after all. The famed Hotel Chelsea in New York is an institution steeped in the history of the city. Elite members of the entertainment world have all stayed at the Chelsea, and yet it is arguably best known for its links to the supernatural. In October of 1978, these worlds collided as it was famously the site of the mysterious death of Nancy Spungen. Spungen was an icon of the 70s music scene and the girlfriend of Sex Pistols member Sid Vicious. Despite initially being viewed as an overdose, Vicious was charged with her demise after a fatal wound was discovered in her stomach. Sid Vicious would himself overdose in February of the following year, before he could be brought to justice. With the case unresolved, it would explain a level of unsettled spiritual activity at the Chelsea. Famous writer Dylan Thomas, who died whilst staying in room 206 at the Chelsea, is often cited amongst the hotel's most notable spirits. Thomas's face has been seen to appear out of nowhere in various parts of the hotel. Guests have also spoken of other ghostly figures, moving pictures, furniture, and ornaments. With these stories and other tragedies at the residence, it is not surprising that it has become a tourist attraction for fans of the arts and the paranormal alike. Lastly, we have the infamous Stanley Hotel in Colorado. The Stanley once housed celebrated horror writer Stephen King in 1974. At that time, only King and his wife were staying there. It was during this period, and as a result of this stay, that King wrote one of his most well-known works, The Shining. Released in 1977, The Shining tells a story of a family that moves into a haunted hotel and the father's resulting psychotic break. It is thought that several of the deaths within the book are a reflection of King's own experiences, down to the room number 217. The details of King's experience may not be the only link the Stanley has to the supernatural, with multiple reports that the hotel's original owner, F.O. Stanley, and his wife still haunt the hallways, having been seen on the staircases and even playing the hotel's piano. The Stanley appears to embrace its reputation by offering ghost tours. If you are ever in the vicinity, maybe you can see for yourself. Thank you all for joining us on this haunted tour. Would you dare to stay at any of these hotels? Perhaps you have already. Let us know in the comments. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side.